Hello, and welcome to Making Sense of It. I'm Mona Duncan, your host, and this program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. Our mission is to facilitate a world where people make responsible choices that build healthy relationships, and this is accomplished through choice theory. Do you ever wonder why you do the things you do? Well, choice theory is based on the simple system of control, as in who has it. And we have more control than we often give ourselves credit for, but we also try to be more controlling than is really healthy for us, or that is good relationship-wise. And we have a speaker that comes in every week to tell us about the concepts of choice theory and reality therapy. And we have our speaker today is Jeff Steedman, and he is in Australia, and he is fast becoming one of our favorite speakers. So welcome, Jeff. It's good to have you here. And those of you that are watching live and will be watching later, I encourage you to take notes, because whenever the program is over with, those of you that are live could ask him a few questions and maybe go a little deeper. In the meantime, thank you for being here, Jeff. And his topic today, or our topic today, is looking at lead management and the four important relationship parts in that and why you need it. So Jeff, we're ready when you are.
Thank you very much, Mona. Thank you for welcoming me again. I'm really enjoying talking to you and the people who join your program. It's been fantastic. Lead management, for those, maybe I'll just fill in people a little bit. When Dr. Glasser originally created his process of reality therapy, which came first, it was a therapeutic approach. Then he created, to explain reality therapy and how it worked, his theory, which he called choice theory. He actually had the term control theory earlier, but of course, eventually it became choice theory. And then people were interested in the leadership side of it, and he developed lead management as an approach to explain how we can lead people to achieve what essentially are needs satisfying lives, and to get the highest quality outcomes. So that's a little bit of the background of it. It's very brief. We could do a whole story on that on its own. But one of the things that Dr. Glasser came up with was the concept of lead management as opposed to boss management. And he talked about the roles, sometimes we say the hats, that people need to wear if they're to be an effective lead manager. And I want to talk a little bit about those four roles and how they relate to each other, and how we can use them to get the highest quality outcomes. A boss manager, I'll start with that, is probably the traditional type of manager. Often when people say they want a strong leader, they're probably talking about a boss manager. And I often say, be careful what you ask for, because often when we get a boss manager, at first there's relief that, oh, somebody's in charge. And then there's angst because we think, I don't like being bossed and controlled that way. So boss manager is probably the way most people lead, but everybody knows a lead manager somewhere in their life. When I talk to people about this, I often get a big whiteboard and I'll say, tell me the qualities of your most favorite leader ever. It could have been a teacher, could have been your parent, could have been someone from Scouts or Guides. Who was your most favorite, and what were their qualities? And Mona, it's really interesting because they never put up anything that's to do with bossing. They put up things about great at relationships, can listen, are supportive, are caring, connecting, all of the things that are hallmarks of what Dr. Glasser called the lead manager. So he was spot on. And I grew up in an era when corporal punishment was still very much part of schooling. And I can remember that there were always the teachers who used primarily corporal punishment. They were the boss managers and they wanted to enforce discipline. But there were, if you were fortunate enough to have a teacher that didn't, they were the teachers that kids wanted to run through brick walls for. That's a saying we have in Australia. I don't know whether that's common in the US, but they didn't need to pull out the strap. They didn't need to yell. They didn't need to belittle. They didn't need to do any of those, because the way that they led the children meant that those kids just wanted to learn, wanted to do the very best they could, wanted to cooperate. No coercion was needed at all. And that's what Dr. Glasser saw. He saw that. He didn't create anything new. What he created was a brilliant observation of what successful people do. And he called that lead management. And it's a bit unfortunate because it's a misnomer now. Unfortunately, business, some sectors of business have grabbed the term lead management, meaning managing business leads. And they use that term interchangeably. And it's a bit of a shame, because I've tried to think of a better one. I can't think of a better term than lead management for what Dr. Glasser described. But the lead manager uses our 4 leadership roles that I'm going to talk about. There is we can maybe classify in another way. The boss manager tends to be more task oriented. They're focused on making or driving people to perform the task. There is another form of leader or manager, which we can call a laissez-faire leader or manager. And they tend to be primarily people-oriented, so they're all about the relationship. But the lead manager is somewhere in between those two. And as I explain the 4 roles, you'll see how and why the lead manager sits between boss manager and laissez-faire manager, and incorporates the very best of them and avoids the traps that the boss manager and laissez-faire manager fall into. So the 4 leadership roles are friend, counselor, teacher, and manager. I'll go through each one and talk a little bit about it. So when we're talking friend, we're not talking about becoming best buddies. What we're talking about is building the best possible relationship between the leader and those they lead. It's about having a healthy, need-satisfying relationship for both. And the lead manager unashamedly has an agenda. And their agenda is to lead people to get the highest quality, either goods, service, product, whatever it might be, to get the best possible results they can. So in the process of having that agenda, what we know from, we go back to what I talked about before, when people list all those qualities of the best leader they ever had, it all is all about the relationship. It's all about having that connection where people trust you enough to be able to say, okay, I'm prepared to give this a go, to give this a try, to give you feedback, to listen to what you've got to say, to learn from you. I'm prepared to do that. So we need to have that hat of being friend. The next leadership role, or the hat that we wear, is of counsellor. Now, often people say, oh, I'm not a counsellor. I don't have any counselling qualifications. But in reality, Mona, as you know, and I'm sure your listeners know, all of us do counselling at various times. So you don't have to be a counsellor with a qualification to be able to help counsel people at times. And the role is one where, when people are having difficulty, in choice theory terms, helping them learn to take responsibility for themselves and the situation they're in, and self-evaluate. So when we're counseling, we're actually helping that self-evaluating process. We're setting it up so that that person can take responsibility for their behavior, not us driving them all the time, and self-evaluate, how can I improve this? How can I get a better result? What can I do that can actually shift things about so that it's better for me? And if it's in a workplace, it gets a better result for the workplace as well. So that's the friend role and the counselling role. And then there's teacher. Sometimes when you're in a leadership role, you just need to be able to teach people things. That's very obvious in, say, maybe a business or a professional with clear, say, physical skills, maybe a carpenter or something like that. You need to be taught how to do the various skills. But it's actually true for every role, for every task that we have. There are times when we need to learn. And so we need to be able to put that hat on of teaching. Sometimes we just need to teach. Boss managers don't realise that, or rarely realise that. And often they just expect you to know, and then they may be punitive or coercive if you don't know. The laissez-faire manager doesn't worry about that. They just think, well, you know, it's your job to learn. It's not my job to worry about it. But the lead manager recognises that if I can help you to learn how to do this better, you'll get more satisfaction out of what you're doing, and I will get a better result as a leader, because what will happen is that you will be better at your job, you will enjoy your job more, and you'll want to do the very best you can. And finally, the last role is that of manager. So we put the manager hat on. And sometimes you just have to make decisions. Sometimes you just have to say, yes, I know that you mightn't like this, but this is the company's rules or the government legislation, or this is the requirement to produce, minimum requirement to produce this particular goods, or the standard for this product or service. Sometimes you just have to do that. But you shouldn't be doing that all the time. If you're doing that all the time, you're very much boss managing. So the art, and I really do call it an art, the art of being an effective leader, in other words, of mastering Dr. Glass's lead management style, is to know when and how to put those 4 hats on. Boss managers who are task-oriented primarily wear the manager hat. That's not to say they don't wear the others at all, but primarily that's what they do. They're just focused on driving people to get the task done or to get the product made, whatever it might be. The laissez-faire manager wears primarily the friend hat. They wear it for too long and too much. They want people to like them or to get along with people. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want trouble. They just want things to go clearly. And as a result, they never make decisions, and they're never clear cut about what's required to do the task, to perform the service, to get the best outcome. And things just loll around. And really, they're dependent on how much the people who are working for them are actually prepared to take charge themselves. But they don't actually lead them to that point. They just leave it to happen. So sometimes it works a bit, and mostly it doesn't work very well at all. So those people who are laissez-faire managers, mainly the friend hat, we can say they're people-oriented. But the lead manager, this is the one we're really interested in. The lead manager will put those hats on at different times, and sometimes they wear all 4 of them at once. And it's easy to do once you're really aware of them. It's not a difficult thing to do at all. It sounds like, oh, you know, I have to juggle all of those things. But you'll find, if you think about it, that you do that anyway. It's not an issue. So let's look at each of them. If I'm being too much of a friend, the leadership role friend, I'm probably not going to want to take on the counselling role, or if I do, I don't take it on effectively, because I just want to ease your discomfort. I just want to make things better for you. So I'm not really helping you to self-evaluate. I might be agreeing with you in the counselling role. I might be even abetting you staying in behaviour that's not constructive or useful either for yourself or for the role that you're in. If I'm too much of a friend, I may not want to teach you. I may not step in. I may not actually want to do that because I think, oh, I don't want to hurt your feelings, and I might upset you if I show you how to do something. And I almost certainly, if I'm doing friend too much, won't manage, because I won't want to tell you that actually that's outside the boundaries of what we either should or are allowed to be doing in this role. So often people want to be friends and have great relationships, but they forget about the other three roles. If I'm too much of a counsellor, I probably won't want to manage. I'll just want to keep guiding. They're two different things. Lead management and counselling are quite, there are similarities, but there is a marked difference. And Mona, you'll be very aware that the definition, or the, if you like, the defining difference between the two is the counsellor has no agenda other than to help the person find effective ways to meet their needs. The leader or manager a lead manager has a clear agenda, which is to get the best possible high quality outcome. And it's unashamedly there as an agenda. And if there is a defining difference between the two, that's it. So if we're too much of a counsellor, we forget about that. We forget about that agenda. We're so busy trying to help people make things better for themselves and grow the people that we forget that we've also got an agenda there, a task as leader. If we're too much of a teacher, we can become disconnected. We're focused primarily on building the skills, and we may be passionate about that, and that's a good thing. But if it's too much, we may not be calling people to task. We may be so busy focusing in on teaching them that we're not actually making sure that they're applying it, or that we're asking them to self-evaluate. Now they have this skill, what are you going to do with it within the job to get the best possible result? And finally, if we're too much of a manager, we really don't invest much time in friending, counselling, or teaching. So if we're too much of a manager, we don't worry about the relationship. We just go, well, you know, they're being paid. They should just get on with the job. Counselling, no, that's for somebody else outside. I'm not going to do that. So we remain distant and disconnected from them. And we don't bother teaching them because we just expect that they should know. I mean, after all, I'm paying you money. You should just know. Or if you're a volunteer, you're volunteering, you should just know how to do this. So you can see that it's the putting together of the four that leads to the very, very best outcome, the highest quality outcome, and the sort of results that, when we go back to that whiteboard exercise I do, that define the leader that everybody wants in their life. And everybody knows they want that leader, but not everybody knows how to get to it. And Dr. Glasser was so clever in developing and explaining those four leadership roles and the concept of lead management, that anyone who takes it on would never go back to being a boss manager or a laissez-faire manager. It is far more rewarding for you and for everyone else. And here's the really interesting thing. All of the research that I can find, perhaps there's other research out there I haven't, but the research that I can find shows that when someone takes on a lead management approach, when they wear those four hats, friend, counselor, teacher, and manager, when they wear those four hats, and when they are very adroit at being able to put them on and take them off at the appropriate time, and when they're confident in operating that way, and it becomes their new default behavior, when they get to that point, those workers, volunteers, students, whatever leadership role it might be, they will perform at their very best, not because they have to, but simply because they want to. And that is an exciting thing to see, and it is an exciting thing to be part of. And it's extremely interesting, and this is what the research shows. You can pay people, as long as they're being paid an adequate wage, it takes a huge amount of money, if anything at all, to get people to leave an environment where someone is lead managing and putting those four hats on and off as appropriate, because it's such a great place to work. It's such a great organization to be part of. It's such a great school to be in, or classroom to be in, that you don't want to leave it. You don't want to go, if you're a student, to that special school over there that's got a a name that's in bright lights because, hey, this teacher in this school is so good. Or, hey, I can get an extra $10,000 a year over there, but I just love being here. Why would I want to leave here? And the research really backs that up. So it's exciting to know that we have available to us at really no expense other than the investment of a little bit of time and a little bit of understanding to learn how to do this. And the other thing I really like to focus on when I'm talking about this issue is that these are things that can be learned. Forget about that rubbish about a born leader. That's, that baby in the cot wasn't born knowing how to lead. That's not true. They learned. And often when we say a born leader, we actually mean the boss manager. It's, that charismatic person that drives things. Not always, but often. But the skills of being a lead manager can be learned by any person on this planet. And Dr. Glasser was very clear about that, very clear about our ability to learn these. Now, some of us may have an advantage in that we've grown up in an environment where we were fortunate enough to come across parents or have parents or grandparents or an uncle or somebody who helped us to learn some of that early. But it doesn't matter. It's never too late. Anybody, if they're really interested in becoming the very best they can as a leader, and all of us will lead at some stage, anyone can learn how to do this. And it's pretty easy to find out. We'll put a little plug in for all of our Glasser and choice theory institutes around the world because they're everywhere. And you only need to contact one of them and start to learn how to do this. And I've seen people change dramatically from any of those roles. I've seen laissez-faire leaders become effective lead managers. I've seen boss managers open their eyes wide and go, I didn't know this existed, and thrive when they learn how to be a lead manager. So we can change. We can all learn how to wear those hats, how to interchange them, and how to balance them at the appropriate time. And it just becomes our new default behavior. I think I mentioned in a previous one that all of our behaviors are just neural pathways. If we've got one that hasn't been working, we can change it. We can alter it, but it takes a bit of time. And I used a term there, Mona, that I like to use. It's about investing time. We invest time doing it rather than spend time doing it. We spend time, we don't get much back for it. But when you invest time, boy, do you get a return. And anybody that's interested in becoming the best leader they can, whether that's leader of their own children, whether it's leader of a social group or a not-for-profit, or as a teacher or as a manager of a corporation, it makes no difference. To learn these 4 leadership roles, become a lead manager, you will become the absolute best leader you can, and you will find that you're loving leading. You're not getting up out of bed every morning saying, I just don't want to go. It reminds me a little bit of a story, and perhaps I'll finish up with this to sum it all up. It's the story of the mother whose son was in bed and was looking at the time, and the alarm had gone off several times, and mum said to the son, you have to get out of bed. You've got to go to school. Going to school it's just what you have to do. You are not allowed to stay there. I have to go to work. You need to go to school. I don't want to go to school. Pulls the covers over your head. I don't want to go to school. It's too hard. I don't want to go. Son, you have to go. You've got an absolute responsibility to go. There's no option. There's no choice. You need to go to school. I don't want to go to school. It's too hard. It's horrible. I dread walking through the gates. Son, you have to go to school. You're the principal. That's someone who's not lead managing. Because if you were lead managing, you'd bounce out of that bed and you'd say, let me at it. I can't wait to get there. That poor old principal was either laissez-faire leading or boss managing, and just were not enjoying what they were doing. They were stressed. They were feeling that they just couldn't cope. But you know when you see a lead manager, because they have boundless enthusiasm. That's why we talk about investing time in it. Boundless enthusiasm, and they just love what they're doing. So that's my talk on the 4 leadership roles today, Mona.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was excellent. I really appreciated that. And as you were explaining it, I could just see a chart and putting the 3 together and side by side and the 1, 2, 3 order and so forth. And that was fantastic. And I began to think back that I'm an entrepreneur. And so I would have, to help myself be a little bit more organized, I made placards that today I'm being the accountant, today I'm being the janitor, today I'm being the teacher or the writer or the researcher. And you're right, it does not take long for you to switch off and not even know you're switching off.
Yeah.
And then, and in working with people and helping them to learn the lead management. I have a client that I was talking to just this week that all of her frustration was with working with the laissez-faire best friend that makes no decisions.
Yep.
And yeah, and her frustration with having talked with her laissez-faire boss and nothing was happening, and how that just added to the employees' own personal stresses. So this is definitely meat for us, for every one of us. So I thank you very, very much. And like that story, that really brought home what you were saying.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and close this out, and thank you that are watching for being with us. And there's always something entertaining. So set your calendars and come back with us again and again. And good mental health to everyone.